over to you, Dan, for your case study.
Hi everybody, I'm going to do a case study on the course that I've just completed for Prod MBA, where we took an idea through from inception to a prototype that we validated against what the users wanted. We started off by talking about our user group and really focusing on a niche that we believed had an acute problem. And having been a first-time buyer and having worked as an estate agent and all of my friends being first-time buyers, believed that there were definite improvements that could be made in that buying process for that group. So our problem statement as a hypothetical to begin with was that we believe that first-time buyers are currently frustrated by the confusing, costly process of buying a home. So our first objective was to validate that this problem really existed and that there was a market for solving it. So we did that by validating with users that this was a real problem for them when they were trying to buy a house. The way that we approached that was through aiming to get interviews with 5 or more people in our niche. And then we were trying to ask them questions about what their problems were around the space and aggregate that into some acute things that we could solve as opportunities for us. We also wanted to validate how we could get in touch with our niche. We went through personal networks initially, and also did some outreach on Facebook groups and looked into Instagram, that sort of thing. And this is the canvas that we created for our calls. We asked a series of questions, aggregated the data about where they had problems before, how they tried to solve them in the past, get some ideas. And we came up with a couple of key frustrations around solicitors in the project, in the process. It being really unclear how you would actually, what the next steps are, the responsibility on you, lack of confidence because you've never gone through it before and nobody really seemed to be looking out for you. And our product vision at that stage was that we help first-time buyers take the stress out of buying out home purchases, because we weren't sure whether or not we were going to be able to solve some of those problems, but we wanted to aim to reduce the stress on the first-time buyer. So our second objective was to validate what we call an offer market fit. So we wanted to offer the users a solution to their problem and check that that was going to be what really solved their problem, and whether or not they were willing to go the next step and pay for that potentially. And there was a bit of back and forth during this process where we were trying to work out what would really differentiate us, what would make a real difference to the users. So we ended up with that we help first-time buyers save 5 to 10% on their first home with expert negotiation advice. And the key results were that we wanted to get an outreach sign-up conversion of over 5%. I think we achieved around 4%. From a simple landing page with a description of what we were offering. We wanted to differentiate ourselves, and we did that using a Blue Ocean strategy canvas. We also created product story canvas, which is how we're going to think about how we appeal to users, and the product vision for what we want to do to try to achieve our offer. And the product space in the UK market is really saturated, lots of people doing lots of offers, different actors. You've got guidance companies, you've got people that have made apps of checklists of things to do. You've got banks that are offering finance advice and saving advice. There wasn't really any way that we could compete with what they were offering. However, quite a lot of people relied very heavily on friends and family to give them good advice and recommendations. But that advice wasn't always trustworthy. And the other thing that really didn't come across was that people didn't really have any knowledge of how to process an offer, to go from making an initial bid through to actually agreeing a purchase price. And this has all sorts of implications for first-time buyers who are on constrained budgets, who might not really understand who's working for them, who's working for the vendor, who might end up paying more than they can, who might end up with their mortgages being refused. So it's a high-risk area for first-time buyers. And that's why we decided to target something that nobody was really offering before. And to make it sort of aspirational and transformational, we wanted to set ourselves the target of trying to save a significant sum of money for the user. So that's why we came up with the 5 to 10% sale saving on their first home through the expert negotiation advice. And this is a screenshot of our landing page and our onboarding survey to get more information from our users. And this is what we took forward. This is what we considered validated. We help first-time buyers to save 5 to 10% on their home purchase. Our third objective was to test and validate that home negotiation advice was valuable and feasible for us to provide. And our key results were of the landing, after we made some refinements to our page, that 10% of the people that visited our page wanted to join our beta mailing list, which we achieved. We had 2 signups out of 20 unique visits. We wanted to do, once we'd validated that that was valuable, we decided to do a first draft of a lean canvas for our business ideas and think of ways in which we could potentially generate revenue, and do a strategic roadmap to decide how we would go about developing our offer, starting from the highest impact, lowest effort. And we also wanted to create a customer journey map where we could anticipate giving moments of value and wow moments for people, but also where we would need to mitigate problems in the potential customer journey. The strategic roadmap we worked on as a workshop. We did a bit of a brainstorm over about half an hour, just to come up with some ideas. We put them on a really simple effort impact matrix and arranged those into what we were going to, highest impact, lowest effort we were going to do first, and then continuing depending on how great the effort is and how great the reward might be. So our initial strategic roadmap was personal consultancy, then some more sort of material-based advice about example negotiations, more content-based, and finally moving into offering a digital solution that would automate quite a lot of that for us, to give more users more benefit, less time consuming for us to run. Our lean canvas helped us to think who we were going to potentially be competing against in the market, how we were going to generate revenue, potential partnerships with, say, mortgage brokers. And we made yet more refinements to our landing page and tried to get more people to sign up. Our customer journey, we took forward how we were going to interact with users, and this didn't change whether or not we were offering what we were doing initially through to our digital solution. We wanted to get people to engage with our offer. We wanted them to feel like this was a personalized experience for what they were interested in. And we wanted to empower them and give them knowledge that they would be able to take forward, and also later on supply material that they would be able to use directly in their negotiation. And our fourth objective was to validate the core value of our product as saving money, the 5 to 10% saving money, and ensure that the customers value that highly. And we came across a couple of interesting effects that actually just giving confidence was really valuable to these people as well. And I think an understanding from most of them that you couldn't guarantee that you were necessarily going to save massive orders of money, but anything that would help them feel more empowered, they really valued. The key results were that we were trying to onboard over 5 beta testers per week. We ran this for 1 week. We managed to get 3 beta testers initially. We wanted to use what's called the product market fit engine, which is primarily a question about if this service was no longer available to them, how disappointed would they be? Of the 3 beta testers that we had, 1 said that they would be very disappointed if it didn't exist. 2, and the other 2 said that they would be somewhat disappointed, having seen the prototype that we made, created using no code in a design system. This is just some screenshots from the prototype, giving an idea of a mobile app that takes you from initially landing, having that really strong offer, trying to get you a saving, trying to empower you, personalizing it through adding the property that you are particularly interested in, and offering specific advice based on seller information that will hopefully get people to have a agreement at a lower price. And over time, as we recorded more and more information, we could standardize that against averages and work out how successful we were being in that approach. This is some more information about what the beta testers said in terms of what they wanted us to keep doing and what they wanted us to improve. Major things for keeping on doing was they really appreciated the guidance that was there. They appreciated that it was an unemotional, objective view of how to take the offer. They really appreciated the advice. It's interesting that they didn't, until I think you actually realize a saving, they didn't see that as potentially valuable. But it got their initial interest. Things to improve were quite a lot of functionality that we had sort of put on the ideas list, but decided not to go after initially. For example, notes, links to other professionals like solicitors and surveyors, but even more guidance, tooltips, so it was really contextual for them in the app. So initially, if we would take this forward, our user stories would be that we would want to help the user understand seller urgency, which is a concept that we put in to really help people understand the factors that would be in play that might allow them to get a lower offer agreed than they initially expected. Tooltips, just guidance against the key concepts, which should be quite easy for us to implement. Recommendations of solicitors and surveyors was a really interesting one, because this is something that I've seen as discussions that have come up in the Facebook groups, etc., etc. And I think that there might be something really interesting in how you can validate good experiences with those professionals going forward. So our roadmap has been to develop the sort of personal coaching initially, whilst we're potentially in parallel building a no code version of the design prototype, continuing to refine that, continuing to speak to users, continuing to find out what they really need. Then preparing some more of the material that we potentially send out to them, for example, offer templates, that sort of thing. Take all of the data that we can get and put it into just simple data analysis tools like Excel so that we can start developing that unique insight data before putting it into our digital app. In general, the principles that we tried to follow through this process is that we wanted data to validate our direction over any sort of opinion or single user anecdotes. So we needed to go for volume, we needed to get big sample sets, we needed to really work on getting as much contact with users as possible. We really wanted to target value over features. We definitely wouldn't go for all of the features that the users said that they would quite like. In general, they were quite happy with the initial user journey. And these were more like little bits and pieces that would help around the edges. We want to avoid cost because it slows us down in terms of just iterating, finding more out. We really just want to focus on first principles about delivering value for our niche and working against that maxim. And so the process that we follow is have a hypothesis, test that, really understand what the users want, think of some ideas that can potentially solve those problems, validating the offer, building prototypes, showing it to users, learning, iterating, and improving until we think that we've got a really good product that will solve the user's problems, and invest in making something permanent with code only once we've really validated our strategy. Just want to finish by introducing myself. My name is Daniel Miskow. I'm a passionate product owner and manager. I've been working in this space for about 4 years. I focus on product strategy, customer delivery. I've got a really great track record of delivering results. Thank you.
Awesome. Really, really good presentation. I'm going to stop recording and we'll jump into feedback.